have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. We begin with an issue that impacts all of us. We begin with an issue that has been discussed a lot in the last few months, but nothing has been done to bring in relief for you or any other common citizen. Fuel prices continue to rise across the country. In fact, for 7 straight days now, the fuel prices have only been going upwards. Absolutely no relief coming in. Petrol, by the way, is now costing over 110 per litre in Mumbai. It's crossed the 100 rupees mark, 101 rupee mark, even in several other cities. Diesel, in fact, has crossed that mark of 100 rupees per litre in several of the cities. That 100 rupees benchmark used to usually be for petrol, and all hell would break loose every time petrol reached that level. We have now seen that level being breached by diesel prices. In the national capital, petrol is 104 per litre, rising about 30 paise the last time. Now, let me give you a larger picture. Let's look at what's really happened, and we're going to take the Delhi prices as the benchmark. In the month of July, the prices for diesel were about 89 rupees 72 paise per litre. In August, there was some respite. There was no hike that came in. In September, again, the prices went to 89 rupees, 89.87 per litre. Then they went up to 93 rupees per litre in the beginning of October. In Mumbai, again, there was no hike in August, but in September, it reached 107. In October, it is now at 110 rupees for petrol. This is not it, because as these prices go up, prices for everything that you buy and consume will also go up. Everything needs some or the other component of crude and, of course, fuel itself for transport. And as that cost goes up, every product that you consume will become costlier. Adding to that is the fact that even LPG prices have relentlessly only shot up. Now, the government repeatedly says that there is really no scope for them to reduce the taxes. Every time you ask them about prices going up, the response also is, well, the crude is going up globally, which is usually true. It is. Now, what the governments don't tell us is how, when the crude does go down, and every now and then it does, the prices find a breathing spot. Sometimes they drop, sometimes they fall significantly. Prices for us do not go down proportionately. There's a big gap in the way we get relief versus when the crude falls to what we pay when the crude goes up. The Reserve Bank of India's governor, for the second time in as many words, has said that he believes that relief needs to come in fuel prices. Obviously, because the Reserve Bank of India is very, very concerned about inflation, mehengai. That's one of their key priorities, to keep mehengai in check. And they can see that this is going to be a big challenge if the fuel prices are not checked. So, will the government give us some relief? That's the big question. I say good evening to Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson for the BJP, Anshul Avajit of the Congress Party, Amirullah Khan, economist, joins me this evening, Madhva Narayan, senior journalist, Ravi Srivastava, political analyst, also joins me this evening. Let me go across to Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal now. Mr. Agarwal, good to have you with us after a while. We've had many conversations, Mr. Agarwal, about the fuel prices and what the strategy has to be there. Is there a benchmark that you think the government needs to work with and say, okay, at this price, I will say now, enough is enough, we have to figure out a solution?
Tanviji, we have to understand that good economics has to be good politics. There are so many legacy issues on the economic front that the things were just being put under the carpet and no right decisions were being taken. The issue is that the economy has to run on the basis of the balancing of the budget. if you need resources for the growth of the country, if you need resources for in creating infrastructure, if you need resources for making balance sheet proper of such companies like warehousing, discoms, and there are huge gaps in the whole PSUs, which you have seen that how 62,000 crores of debt has been created under Air India. It was taken over in 1953 and nationalized, and now at 2021, with a debt of 62,000, it had to be given back. So this is the state of economy that the government were playing with the future of the country. Oil bonds, PSUs, backlog, coal block allocations, and warehouses. There was a huge payment from the for the pending payment to the warehouse companies, and that was not even provided in the balance sheets of the even the included into the budget. Is this the economy we want to run the country with? We have to go for reforms. We have to go for transparency. We have to undo the wrongs of the past governments. And at present, when Modi ji came to power in 2014 and 19, we never came to power just to manage the country. We came to transform. And you see the economy is being transformed. There are issues, there are problems in the economy. They were legacy issues. We are trying to resolve them. In some, we find it more difficult to resolve. In many things, we are on the path of movement. Currently, if you talk about the fuel, definitely I agree. There is a component of large portion of tax, but it is also a responsibility of the state. The state are taking center when the center is compensating them in the GST without even fully getting funds from the public. We have reduced the indirect tax. We have reduced the direct tax. So ultimately, there has to be somewhere from where the resource will be generated. How will you fuel a 22 lakh crores of Atmanirbhar Bharat post-COVID package? The infrastructure of several lakh crores is to be built. The discoms at present are in a doldrums. You need more than a lakh crore rupees to just revamp the discoms, and the crisis which arise is why the discoms have not maintained the stock of 22 days as mandated by the regulatory authority because their position, their working capital was in bad shape. They kept only 8 or 10 days of stock.
So,
when
okay,
the global
Mr. Agarwal,
even
if I say, okay, Mr. Agarwal, even if I have to take what you're saying as the rationale that high fuel prices are here to stay, you are now giving me a fresh example and reason to say, look, power discoms, when you say discoms, for the understanding of our viewers, the distribution companies for power, which was supposed to keep a basic level of coal stock with them, which is ideally 15 days or 20 days, did not do so, is now being said as one of the reasons why we are in such a grave coal shortage and power crisis. You're saying if the power discoms were in a better financial state, then this problem may not have occurred. And they can be in a better financial state because you're charging us high prices for fuel. So is everything that's going wrong right now with us the excuse for we are not paying taxes enough? Is that what it is?
No, ma'am. The issue is that we have reduced the direct tax and indirect tax. Earlier, indirect tax were to the tune of 28 to 30%.
सर आप अभी आप यहाँ से लेके और वहाँ दे दें या वहाँ से लेके यहाँ दे दें, इसका बढ़ाएं और उसका कम करें, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता मिस्टर गोपाल अग्रवाल, क्योंकि मैं जो प्राइस पे कर रही हूँ पेट्रोल पंप पे वो वैसे का वैसा ही है. जो टैक्स आप 2014 में ले रहे थे उसका वो बढ़ के 2021 में it has become from 9.48 rupees per litre of excise on petrol to 32.9 rupees per litre excise. This is the tax on petrol in 7 years, Mr. Gopal Agarwal. Now you can tell me you reduced the excise here, but you increased another tax such that you get it from the states. I don't care about that financial jugglery. Please try and understand. I am not here to speak on behalf of the states. Anshul Avijit can do that if he wants to. My question to you is on behalf of the citizens, saying when will you give us relief? At what point?
Yeah, yeah.
फार्मर्स को भी बचाना है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर भी बनाना है, सड़कें भी बनानी है, स्कूल्स भी ठीक करने हैं, अब हमको पावर डिस्कॉम्स को भी बचाना है, कल को हम एयरपोर्ट्स के को भी बनाने होंगे. इफ यू आर गोइंग टू यूज एवरीथिंग एज एन एक्सक्यूज फॉर हाई फ्यूल प्राइसेस, देन टेल अस एंड सो दैट पीपल ऑफ दिस कंट्री आर रेडी टू डू दैट.
We are open. We understand the economics. The issue is when the inflation is around less than 6%. That is the targeted inflation that the RBI has set for itself. If the inflation is under control, it is less than 6%. I agree that from wherever you pay taxes, ultimately the government will run on taxes. How can the government run without taxes? So if you if you do not want us to take it from fuel, then you will have to take it from other indirect taxes. So it is the government choice from where it takes taxes or where it gives relaxation. That is, we are choosing. So we are not denying that.
So
I'm accepting that government is taking taxes, but the thing is that where you are spending that taxes is important. Economics is a choice.
Okay, so you've made a very interesting argument. Before I get in our other experts, let me actually go across to Mr. Amirullah Khan on this. Mr. Khan, BJP says the RBI's target is also to keep inflation below 6%. As long as inflation is not crossing that levels and is not really beginning to pinch the economy, where is the problem? Would you agree with that argument?
Well, you see, there is an issue about overall inflation, and the overall inflation is what the RBI has kept as its objective, and is trying to keep that low with using monetary policy, not using taxation and not using fuel prices. If you mix the two, then there is a problem. The RBI does not decide on taxation and does not decide on fiscal policy. So let's keep the RBI out of it for the moment. The important thing here is to understand that while petrol and diesel prices are inelastic, and that's the argument that the government often takes, that look, if the prices are going up, where is demand coming down? Demand is up and everybody is buying fuel. That's a very simplistic kind of argument, to believe that if people are still buying petrol and diesel, it is justified to keep prices up. The issue is that if I pay more for petrol, which I have to because I have to go to work, because I have to transport my goods, I do that at the cost of reducing some other expenditure. And therefore, if we are talking about economic growth, we have to be very careful that we are not forcing citizens, forcing customers to cut down their expenditure on other things because petrol and diesel are important, that they are inelastic. At some point in time, that elasticity also will kick in and people will stop demanding petrol and diesel, and that's where we will have a serious problem. You see, the important thing is that yes, international prices have gone up, as Mr. Agarwal also says. Yes, there is an increase in consumption. That is very true. But the important thing about petrol and diesel prices is the signaling that we do. When you signal that you're okay with continuous prices rising of fuel, then you are conveying this impression that it is going to affect consumption, and that is what is going to hurt sentiment of those who produce, because they fear, and this is what is happening, that what we fear is that consumers are going to have less money to spend because they are spending more on petrol and diesel for a variety of reasons. And that is going to show in the market and in the market sentiment. At a time when people are all looking for festival sales and for some kind of a spurt in economic activity, at this time, if petrol and diesel are touching 110 and 120, and let me also tell you that India's fuel prices are way above the average prices in the world.
Correct.
Every country in the world is facing this problem, and we are far ahead of the rest of the world. So to use this argument that we are doing it because we have lower taxes or because we want more money is a slightly facile argument.
Okay.
The issue really Yeah, good.
You're
Yes, thank
using
you, Tanvi.
facile argument. We should find other ways to also fund the expenditure, especially when times are tough. Of course, this could be the easy way out, but there may be always other ways of raising the funds that you need to spend on people. I'm actually going to put another quote here. This is the union MOS for petrol and oil and gas, Mr. Rameshwar Telly, who's just been quoted by the ANI today, saying fuel prices aren't high, but include the tax levied. You must have taken a free vaccine. Where will the money come from? You haven't paid the money. This is how it was collected. Now, that's another argument, Mr. Madhavan Narayanan, that, well, the government had to fund the entire COVID package, including the free vaccine for most of the country. So, I mean, if the argument is that the same poor man is going to be paying high prices for fuel, does that work?
Well, let me first tell you, as a student of economics as well as political science, because, I was listening to Mr. Agarwal patiently, and he was speaking like a good textbook economics. Unfortunately, we cannot have good economics and a bad economy. You cannot have the textbook approach so narrowly interpreted that you are confusing accountancy with economics. Economics is philosophy. Without a philosophical literacy, you will never truly understand economics. And this government is philosophically semi-literate. Let me say it bluntly. Now, let me come to the point you have been discussing. Everybody, Dr. Khan said, and you said, the point is that the cloth is never going to be enough for all. You have to, the political economy is the art of cutting the cloth. You should know how to cut the cloth and when. The fact is that the Modi government had a window of opportunity for not 1, not 2, but 5 or 6 years, in which it has it has made its choice to follow an accountancy-oriented economics, forgetting the politics as well as the philosophy. And I like this spin about vaccination being subsidized by petrol prices indirectly. It is partly true, but the whole idea of meaningful political economics is about pinching the people in such a way that they do not feel the pinch, whether they are farmers, they are middle class people, or whether they are the poor. Now, what happens when you have an accountancy-oriented approach is that you fall in love with the concepts of textbook economics, forgetting that it's about people. So unless you have an empathy for various groups of people, unless you start seeing people behind the numbers, you will never be able to get this. And this is where I feel the government missed a window of opportunity when it's fantastic. Mr. Narendra Modi took power at a time when the global oil prices plunged to 1/3 of the previous government's levels. It could have been used as a window of opportunity, and it was, but not in the way that people might like it very easily. They used it for the implementation of the GST, which is a good thing. But they also did demonetization, and they also did the NPA management of the banks. So all this could have been anticipated by a body called Niti Aayog, which has not been doing its job at all. Niti Aayog doesn't know what it's doing because it has chosen its own flights of fancy and hobby horses to ride without understanding that the erstwhile Planning Commission was precisely doing advanced forecasting on these things. So there's been a lot of mess from the people's point of view. Now, any economist would like, the orthodox market economists will like what Mr. Agarwal said.
Right.
We got 1.4 billion people, so it's not for economists. Economics is too, I often say that, Napoleon said war is too serious a business to be left to the generals. So economics is too serious a business to be left to economists. You need philosophers, you need political scientists, you need sociologists, and you need psychologists to truly understand philosophy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this government has been lacking in an interdisciplinary perspective, and it is paying the price for it. This is all I can say, because otherwise all the concepts are right from Mr. Agarwal's point of view. My question to the government is, are you philosophically rich enough to face the problems you're going to be facing in the coming days? My answer is afraid not.
Okay, Gopal Agarwal can respond to that.
Briefly, Mr. Madhavan has taken the debate to a different philosophical level. It will take a long time for me to answer. I am also a student of economics, and I know economics. I am a chartered accountant also. I know, and I have been involved into various industries and business. So I have those understanding of the fact. But what thing I would like to tell you is that what he is saying, that philosophical economics alone is not successful. What happened to Manmohan Singh ji's economics? What we saw, the way the business and other communities suffered under him. So the thing is that a political economy or political leaders don't need to understand everything into the nitty gritty. And I consider economics as आम आदमी को रोटी कपड़ा मकान नौकरी कैसे मिले, ये इकोनॉमिक्स है. ये नहीं है कि फिस्कल डेफिसिट क्या है, ये सब चीजें. तो वी आर वर्किंग ऑन ए फॉर्मूला वेयर ग्राउंड लेवल पे इकोनॉमिक्स मेक्स अ डिफरेंस. वी हैव अ आइडियोलॉजी ऑफ अंत्योदय, getting the government benefits welfare scheme to the last person. So we are including technology, we are including the generation of resources, we are improving the distribution networks, and even those sections, there was economic development in the country, but a large section of the country was left out. So what I say is that the important thing of taxation policy, fiscal policy, is it should generate resources for the government to go for economic growth, catalyzing economic growth, as well as for distribution of welfare schemes. We do not believe in UPA or AAP government philosophy of just distributing poverty. We are right to center. We support businesses. We support industries. We consider them to be part of the growth of the economy. What Delhi government is doing, they are creating regulatory assets in the balance sheets of the DISCOMs, not even paying the subsidies which they are announcing. So this is the economics that you want to do. What oil bond, etc., how the coal blocks were. So there are issues, corruption, etc. We are correcting them. We are creating a transparent ecosystem, and for an infrastructure, ease of doing business, ease of living, housing, urban, rural infrastructure, roads, airways, all these needs resources.
Okay,
and these
got your
resources
point.
will come from taxes.
Got your point. All of these schemes, and repeatedly BJP has cited their welfare schemes up to COVID and the vaccination policy to now even talking about the power situation, Anshul, to say, well, we're using this money for good purposes. We are using the high fuel tax money for the welfare of the people. So what is the problem?
And efficiently and without corruption
No,
and
no, no.
leakages.
Mr. Agarwal, just a minute. You know how mischievous this argument is. Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan repeatedly, now he's no longer in the ministry, but I will give you the quotes by someone who is, but Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan repeatedly said that we are taking this money and using it, gift wrapping it and using it for welfare schemes. How bogus is that argument? How mischievous is that argument? How unconscionable is that argument? The entire macroeconomic response of this government to the pandemic. In fact, Mr. Agarwal, I heard him. I have not. He's an economist. He knows what he's saying. He has to defend the government. But all this talk about legacy. I mean, for God's sake, this government has been in power for 7 years. Their macroeconomic response to this pandemic has been an absolute disaster for the past 2.5 years, and I'll support the argument. First of all, this price hike, the fact that this government refuses to bring down the excise duty of petrol at a time like this is completely morally transgressive. It is unconscionable, it is ruthless, it is unprotective, it is lazy. If I was to be more charitable, Mr. Agarwal, I would say it is lazy and it is unimaginative, since you cannot find any other way to do it. What this does is, you're actually punishing the poor. This is a regressive form of taxation. We know well enough now that it has a malignant effect. It feeds into the prices of other commodities. It has a cascading effect and it hurts the poor the most. So we already know that every single policy of this government since the pandemic and even before, but I wanted to focus on the pandemic, but that's really important here because, you know, everything has gone downhill from there, has been completely anti-poor. You focused on a supply side economics. You focused on, you know, this kind of which has led to this cost push inflation. You supplied on supply side economics where it has not worked at all. I'll come to the RBI's monetary policy, and that must have also been, I don't agree that it shouldn't be brought into the conversation. It must have been, it should be, because that is also where the fault lies a little bit. But, you know, this government has been, what is happening around the world at the moment is that OPEC refuses to bring up its prices down and up its production at the moment. We are seeing, you know, there are shadows of 73 that are coming to haunt us at the moment because there was stagflation at that time. There was no growth, there was high unemployment, and the fuel prices just simply went haywire. God forbid it comes to that. But the government has taken no measures to do it. All the figures that have come ever since the government released the Q1 GDP figures of 20.1 has been that it points to a K-shaped recovery of the economy. Simply
Anshul,
because
all of that is the BJP says all of that is your fault, your party's fault. If only you hadn't created such a big mess during your time, we would have gotten somewhere better. They're still cleaning that up.
How did that happen? No, but tell me how that happened. It's been 7 years. What kind of inflation was there during UPA times? It was demand pull inflation. You know, you had classic Phillips curve. Are we talking about economics? I know a thing or two about it. It was classic Phillips curves that happened then. This is cost push inflation. It's going to lead to stagflation. You've not created any demand at all. Your gross fixed capital formation is down is about 2018 levels. There is no demand in the economy. You know, the consumer sentiment is at an all-time low. Mr. Agarwal keeps talking about, you know, reducing these kind of taxes, corporate taxes down. All that money is being invested in the stock market. You've created a K-shaped economy in which there are premium segments of the economy are running haywire. So you've got a booming stock market. The sale of Mercedes. I'll give you some fine examples, Tanvi, to say how the economy is K-shaped. So in the premium segment, in the segment that buys computers worth more than 60,000 and above, in the segment that buys television screens of more than 50 inches and above, in the segment that buys Gaitondes and Hussains, you know, the economy is doing really well. Look at the stock market here, which actually runs on the fear of the American Fed and Jerome Powell.
So,
but even there, stock market is doing amazingly well.
I must just tell Anshul, though, we are in a better place today, and consumers have a better outlook of where we are today than they did in the month of August, because the later consumer index does show an uptick which has happened, far from where we could have, we should be, but things are beginning to turn around.
One other quick point.
1 minute, allow me to. I'll come back to you guys. I will come back to both of you. Ravi Srivastava has very patiently heard everybody out, and I want to go across to him.
5 seconds, one comment, 1 second, 5 seconds.
Okay.
I call what the economic policy Congress used to follow is a crony socialism. Can they explain why Air India had to, why Air India is Congress hard baat Congress pe le jayenge? Who will explain this? 62,000 crores of debt in
history will be explain it. Who will explain your policies? It's complete shambles.
Okay, let's put it simply, and let me bring in Ravi Srivastava and ask him this question. Allow me, please. So the argument here which is happening on your policy versus mine, and which is better for the people and for the nation itself, Ravi, is that, for example, in 2011, the crude oil at that time was peaking. We all remember it, you know, it went to 120, but even when it was at $112 per barrel, the price for petrol in Delhi was 65.76 per litre. Now contrast that to where we are today, where the Brent is currently at $84.28 per barrel, but petrol prices have soared to 104.5 rupees per litre. Now the BJP says this is still sound economics, but at least 1 minute, allow me to talk, allow me to finish my point, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, finish my question at least. BJP says this is still good economics because firstly, we are using all this money for the benefit of people, welfare of the people who need it. Secondly, we are not doing it at the cost of businesses. So your oil refineries are not drowning in losses. losses. There is no massive subsidy rollover which is happening year after year. Our entire fiscal math looks so much better. It's taken us years to fix all of that. Whereas the Congress party is saying, but all of this is at the cost of the poor man who cares about the one oil company which is owned by the government. Where do you stand, Ravi?
Tanvi, first of all, thank you very much. After 27 minutes, taken me into debate.
Thank you for patiently waiting.
Let me tell you, I'll take you a little more behind. I've spent around 28 years in the oil industry, and I know all the basics of the oil pricing and everything. Let me tell you, first of all, is the irony that you had quoted an example of 2011. I'm giving you an example of 2008. In the month of June 2008, the dollar petrol, the diesel, was $148. It is the ever highest in the industry by the OPEC. Now, petrol was selling that time 53 rupees a liter. And today, when crude is only $84 per barrel, we are getting petrol for 110 rupees a liter. Anyway, dollar fluctuation may also be taken into account, all these things. But this is the kind of irony. My friend Mr. Gopal Agarwal talked about the oil bonds because the UPA government was working on subsidies and they gave the oil bonds. Oil bonds were given only for 1,30,000 crores to the oil companies, for which the government is paying 10,000 crore rupees interest on that. In the 2016 till 2021, in last 5 years, the government has pocketed 15.89 lakh crore rupees only from the excise and taxes from the public at large of this country. And they could have paid back. That is hardly 1% of that whole money which you are pocketing every year, that interest amount of 10,000 crore rupees. Now, another thing which I want to tell you, they talk about the international pricing of the crude. When the crude went down to $30 per barrel, what price you were selling the petrol that time? Just quote me. See, this is how they have fooled the people that this is internationally connected. Now I want to ask Mr. Gopal Agarwal, for last 7 years, how much crude production of this country has gone up? Reply me. It has gone down by at least 5 million tons. You know that? Are you aware? That's a gross inefficiency on the part of this government in last 7 years. The ONGC, the OIL, the quantity of crude produced by them is negligible now. And the government is forced to import 87% of the crude oil of its requirement from the world. This is a situation you have messed up the oil economy altogether completely. I can tell this government. And as far these oil bonds and all these excuses they are giving, this welfare, even today they are saying 35,000 crore you have budgeted for the free vaccination to the people. What are you talking? That they now say oil money is being used for the vaccination also. All kind of foolish, immature, childish arguments are given by these people. And Antyodaya scheme and this scheme and that scheme. What are you doing in the banking? You have given 3.15 lakh crore worth of recapitalization to the banks. Again, it will fall on your head in 2028 and 2030. So what good are you doing with the economy, sir? Can you tell me? You are also postponing the problems for the future. And you say you are doing a wonderful economics. I am ashamed that this kind of the way they are squeezing people.
So the charge by Ravi Srivastava is that you are also resorting to similar tactics. Mr. Madhavan, I see your hand. Just allow Gopal to respond on this and then I'll come to you. The charge also is, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, that you are also using similar tactics to roll over and postpone the inevitable dark side of the economy.
This is a wrong argument that he is telling. There was a big chunk of funds, debt accumulated at the warehousing company. In this budget, Nirmala ji has paid that and brought many of the items which were outside the budget and balance sheet of the government and were creating debt and deficit with the governments. That has been brought into the budget. There is a big transparency in the way. When I'm talking about oil bond, it is not only the amount. I'm talking about the bad economics. like warehousing corporation, like discoms, like NPAs, hidden NPAs, like oil bonds, and now again the Delhi government and other are creating regulatory assets in the discoms. They are not paying the subsidy. I am talking about the concept of bad economics, and where when I talk of bad economics is creating subsidy, announcing subsidies and not accounting them in the budget. That is bad economics. If you want to give a subsidy to the oil companies, make provision in the budget and pay them. Why didn't you do it?
Everybody knew
That
about
is
it. Saving the
then the
poor
second
from
thing is
rising
warehousing corporation.
prices of oil
You
is
know
bad
warehousing
economics.
corporation, how much accumulated debt they had, and they had not even provided in the UPA government by the in the budget. We have done it. We have paid them. Therefore, we have improved the
You have
procurement,
created
and
gross
therefore
iniquities
farmers are happy.
in Indian
Then
society
the
after the
distribution,
pandemic, Mr.
economics of
Agarwal.
distribution. We have created an efficient distribution system, like the direct benefit
For
transfer,
God's sake,
Jan
there
Dhan
are gross
account,
iniquities.
and
It's a
where
K-shaped
without
recovery. The rich are getting
Okay,
richer.
okay. All
Every
right.
single
roads
indicator
are
points
being
to that.
constructed at the rate of 37 kilometers a day. Rural housing,
Well,
Pradhan Mantri
8%
Awas
GDP, it
Yojana,
came down to
Ayushman
4%.
Yojana,
There was
Ujjwala Yojana,
industrial
then
contraction. How do you answer these questions?
प्रधानमंत्री किसान सम्मान योजना, इसलिए हमें लोग वोट देते हैं. इस हमने अंत्योदय के द्वारा जनता के हित में काम किए हैं.
Okay.
डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मैकेनिज्म को एफिशिएंट बनाया
ये
है.
आप इकोनॉमिक्स कोड पे आ गए. यही तो बात है ना.
Pandemic is a problem. Pandemic has created a difficulty in the
No,
economics.
Mr. Agarwal,
But
your
we-
problems. No,
policy
Mr. Agarwal, I am
Thank
with
you.
you on a few of the points that you have made, but I will vehemently object when you say pandemic created our problems. Your problems and the problems for this economy and this country's economy began much before the pandemic hit us, Mr. Agarwal. We had already dropped from 8% to 4% under your government's regime, irrespective of the mess that may have happened during UPS time, where we had slowdown, we had a policy paralysis, we had corruption scandals, which is why they all got booted out. Irrespective of the fact that you got an overwhelming majority and you were brought in by 2019, the economic growth engine had slowed down to half its speed. Now, Madhavan wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
I think we have to take a deep breath and say one thing, that in politics, it is very common to blame the predecessors and take credit for something that they did. For instance, Aadhaar was started under UPA, but the NDA did a very good job of implementing it and calling it Digital India. Similarly, oil bonds was a problem created by UPA, which is now, so you cannot take the credit for something others did while blaming it for what? Because people are too smart in India today. You know, so they will discuss it, they will ask you questions. Having said that, let me congratulate Mr. Agarwal's government that, yeah, the highways and the housing and Ayushman Bharat, everything looks good on paper. But the point is, inflation and prices are an across the board issue. So if you look at China, you know, India loves to fight China politically, but emulate China economically. So building highways and make in India, everything is part of this whole try to be like China syndrome. Okay. But the problem is China is cracking down on big tech and real estate, Evergrande and things like that. So it is very important to understand that political economy is not just about doing good things. It is also cracking down on the bad guys. Now, the point is that we have not got the balance right under the Modi government on the economic aspects of the people, not textbook economics. So which is why I keep saying that you have to have the art of cutting the cloth. And let me point out that the Madhya Pradesh and the Rajasthan elections were lost by the government, by the BJP in the assembly elections, and recently Bengal also. So although the Antyodaya program looks good on paper, the fact is that if you look at MNREGA and things like that, there has been let me put it this way. I don't even call it error. Let me just try to sound like a camera and not like a comment. The fact is that this government has erred on the side of orthodox supply side economics, as Anshul calls it. So there is a price to pay for supply side economics in a democratic system, because in a democracy, politics is about by the people, of the people, for the people. But is economics by the people, for the people, of the people? My answer is currently it may be for the people, it may be, you know, uh, of the people, but it's certainly not by the people. It does not look at the way the people look at economics, although there are schemes like Ujjwala or something that have a nice package around it. I'm afraid you have to talk big scale. You have to talk really big scale. At the moment, the Antyodaya program of Roti Kapda or Makan, the country has moved beyond that, which is why Modi won actually. Modi won because he did not want to repeat the Congress slogan of Roti Kapda or Makan. And having succeeded, to go back to the Congress slogan looks a little odd to me.
Yes.
You have to probably go towards Siksha and Suraksha. The country's aspirations have risen. And part of this whole petrol problem is because you cannot talk the language of the 1970s in the 2020s. And now oil is being considered, petrol and diesel are now being considered as basic necessities by the middle class.
Correct.
Therefore, there has to be a new economics to this. And I'm afraid somewhere, the Modi government has failed to understand the balancing act.
Yes, and you know the economics of it, the argument that, oh, if you can afford to own a vehicle, you can definitely afford to fill it up, doesn't hold good, because the rising fuel prices and crude prices mean everything that people are consuming gets more expensive. So it hits people across the board, not just people with fancy cars who may be able to afford fuel for that. But let me go back to Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan, we've discussed enough, and Gopal Agarwal has also wholeheartedly defended the Modi government's economics and what their strategy is. Clearly, that's not going to change, irrespective of where the fuel prices goes, at least in the near term. Now, is there another solution? Is there another solution to this problem? When you need money for all of these developmental projects, where else can you get it if not high taxes?
Good question, Tanvi. And, to get the discussion back to the economy and economics, you see, price decontrol for petrol and diesel, which is the market reform that is being talked about, happened about 10 years ago, and it was welcomed by all of us. But you see, what resulted was this very strange thing that whenever crude prices go up, the retail petrol price goes up. But when it comes down, the retail price doesn't go down. That is not market decontrol. You cannot ensure that the only person who benefits with fluctuating and market prices is the government or the private sector that is now rampant in the petroleum sector. That is what hurts. The second point is that are petrol prices and the high taxes in petrol being used for development schemes? Look at what happened in the budget. We cut the budget down on healthcare. At a time when we were fighting COVID, the health budget came down. The education budget, despite a new education policy, was slashed by 6,000 crores. Now, where are we spending this money? And that's the signaling that I am talking about. That if we allow prices to go up continuously and spend that money on central vistas, on Rafale planes, and on statues, that does not send the right signal. And to then say that this money is going to be used for overcoming a tax deficit, which has come because of large cuts in corporate taxes. You see, income taxes have not been cut. Large corporate taxes have been brought down. All this sends a very, very wrong signal at a time when a lot of people are struggling because incomes have actually been coming down in real terms. That is the worry. And therefore, I think what is important is that prices have to be rationalized. It is a market economy, but prices cannot keep going on forever. How the government is going to recover some of that tax losses is by ensuring that the economy grows. That's the only sustainable way of generating taxes. Okay. It is not by robbing Peter and paying Paul. It cannot be the case. It has to be sustained by ensuring high economic growth.
But in some cases, Mr. Khan, you're robbing Peter to pay for Peter itself and then also saying, look what great welfare schemes we've got for you. Then it becomes a problem. But let's see. We had this debate when petrol was at 90 and the government said nothing doing. At that point, the government's welfare schemes for various segments were at play. We had this debate when petrol reached 100 rupees. The government said nothing doing. COVID was the focus at that time, so we went ahead. Now we're having this debate when the petrol has reached 110. We are now being told about several other of government schemes, including the need to help the power discoms. If that is the agenda, then maybe we need to simply accept this fact and move on. and prepare ourselves to bear the brunt of inflation. And people will. What choice do they have? But when they choose to make it an issue for them, politically speaking, when they choose their next government, is the current government willing to take that kind of a political chance? When economy is down, jobs aren't around, and everything is so expensive, citizens may begin to rethink their political choices. Are we ready to take that gamble? Or if the government's so sure that the economy is going to bounce back and everybody's going to forget about it, then maybe their gamble will work out. I, for one, believe that for a government, good economics would mean that you find fresh, innovative ways to raise funds, to run your schemes, to provide development. But all of it cannot be on the back of the same old easy tax on the same old set of people. Thinking creatively might help you. Thank you for joining us.